India's relationship with America is in trouble. Just a year ago, India and the United States were riding high after Prime Minister Modi's state visit to America. Washington rolled out the red carpet for Modi, and President Joe Biden memorably declared that the India-US relationship would be the defining partnership of the 21st century. But now, just a year later, things seem to have changed for the worse. From Russia to Khalistan, Washington and New Delhi are clashing on some key issues that threaten to undermine their newly built partnership. Can India and America resolve their differences? On this episode of Threadbare, we look at the major controversies that have hit the India-US relationship over the last year. We also ask a simple question: are India-US ties in serious trouble? To understand how we got here, we have to go back to June 2023, when Prime Minister Modi visited America. The visit was really a celebration of how far the two countries have come together. For decades after India's independence in 1947, its relationship with America had been complicated and tense. Pakistan, the Cold War, the 1971 war, terrorism, these were just some of a long list of issues that have divided the two countries for decades. But despite all of this, India and America began to rebuild their relationship at the start of the 21st century. Today, America is probably India's most important strategic partner. $200 billion in trade, a strong defense relationship, and a 5 million strong Indian diaspora are key pillars of this relationship. All of that was on display during Modi's 2023 visit to America. The two sides unveiled new projects on defense, technology, climate change, and trade. And Modi addressed a joint session of US Congress for a second time, a rare honor for an Indian leader. It was undoubtedly the strongest the India-US relationship has been in the last 75 years. Just a year later though, in 2024, things look very, very different. Tensions between the two countries have risen very publicly. So what went wrong? The first major crisis that hit the relationship was the Pannun murder for hire conspiracy. Here's just a quick recap. In November 2023, news broke that American authorities had arrested an Indian national named Nikhil Gupta. Gupta was accused of working with an Indian intelligence officer to assassinate Gurpatwant Singh Pannun, a prominent pro-Khalistan extremist who is an American citizen. The plot failed, but it also created a major problem for India-US relations. While both India and America have carried out foreign assassinations before, friendly countries don't normally do that on each other's soil. America took the matter seriously and raised it with the highest levels of the Indian government. Washington demanded accountability and reform in Indian intelligence agencies, and India also responded with seriousness. While it fought a public diplomatic duel with Canada when it accused it of a similar assassination, New Delhi chose to work quietly with Washington to resolve this issue. Now, the Pannun controversy has been managed, but let's be clear, it did damage bilateral ties. In fact, right afterwards, President Biden declined an invitation from India to be its guest for Republic Day. This isn't spectacular in and of itself, but the timing of the announcement put India in an embarrassing position. With just weeks to go for Republic Day, New Delhi had to scramble to find a replacement for Biden, which it did successfully. But there was widespread speculation this was actually a case of America expressing its anger over the Pannun case. This hasn't been the only problem. Moving into 2024, India's elections and democracy came into focus. Over the last couple of years, America has, from time to time, expressed concerns about what it sees as growing authoritarianism in India. It has talked about religious freedom, attacks on minorities, and weakening democracy in India. This has been a periodic irritant since India does not appreciate interference in its domestic politics. But it only increased this year because of the general election. America, for example, made statements on the arrest of Delhi Chief Minister Arvind Kejriwal and on tax authorities freezing the accounts of the opposition Congress party. India's foreign ministry retaliated by terming these statements unacceptable. Finally, there's the Russia problem. While India's relationship with Russia has long been a concern for America, both countries have managed this pretty well in the past. India has made clear that it will not give up its historic relationship with Russia, and America has broadly accepted this policy. But this understanding was close to breaking point in July when Prime Minister Modi visited Moscow to meet with Russian President Vladimir Putin. While the visit in itself was expected, it also happened to coincide with the 75th anniversary summit of the America-led NATO alliance. NATO, as you might know, is currently fighting Russia in the ongoing Ukraine war. So even as NATO was meeting to discuss how to defeat Russia, Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi was sitting down with Vladimir Putin, a man who much of the West now sees as a war criminal. It did help that while Modi was meeting Putin, Russian forces bombed a children's hospital in Ukraine. Despite the fact that India's Prime Minister made a fresh pitch calling for diplomacy to end the Ukraine war, the optics surrounding Modi's visit were not good, especially among Western countries. This has caused some frustration in America, particularly since Washington asked India to change the dates of the visit to avoid any controversy. So all of this, democracy, Russia, the Pannun controversy, seem to be having an impact on the relationship. First, you had US Ambassador to India Eric Garcetti make a pretty frank speech asking Indians not to take the relationship for granted. Then, senior figures in America, including former National Security Advisor H.R. McMaster, argued that the expectations of the India-US relationship need to be brought down. Some experts argue that the relationship is actually quite weak and fragile.
The relationship, although strong, still has some tensions built into it that do make the relationship relatively fragile over the longer term, right? So again, today, strong relationship, but over the longer term, I think there's a possibility that some of these tensions related to, for example, differences over values and differences over interests, those are going to continue to come to the fore and make it more difficult for Washington and New Delhi to cooperate.
Clashes over Russia or democracy or Khalistan are serious. But the truth is that these clashes are simply worsening already existing disagreements between India and America. Fundamentally, the problem is that the two countries have very different views of what their partnership is supposed to achieve. India wants America's help to take on China, modernize its defense forces, and grow its economy. America, though, wants to integrate India further into its system of Asian alliances. It also wants a much deeper military partnership with India on China and other issues in Asia. For example, earlier this year, America asked India to join a multinational military task force under its leadership after the Red Sea crisis broke out. India refused. Now, this was a fairly smart policy given that America is increasingly unpopular in the Middle East, and India has always followed its own independent policy. But it did add to a sense in Washington that India will not be as reliable a defense partner on key issues that it hoped it would be. The Quad, which began as a security partnership of 4 countries aimed at China, has actually diluted a lot of its military focus, and India has been a major reason for that. This, in a way, explains the tension in the relationship. America has larger expectations of the India-US relationship that New Delhi simply doesn't seem to share. And that mismatch in expectations is fueling a sense of disappointment, which is made worse by clashes over democracy, human rights, and the Pannun assassination controversy. In fact, Ambassador Eric Garcetti warned that while the India-US relationship is deep, it may not be deep enough to deal with these periodic controversies. So, are India and America headed for an angry breakup? Well, not exactly. Gradually, America seems to be coming around to India's view of a more limited partnership. So, the India-US relationship will definitely focus on shared priorities like trade, technology, economics, and China. And it will be a relationship that benefits both sides and would allow India to maintain the strategic autonomy it desires. But this more limited and transactional friendship will also come with fewer benefits for India. For example, noted expert Professor Rajesh Rajagopalan points out that India wants America to transfer it key defense technologies like the General Electric F-404 jet engines. But Washington would have little reason to hand over valuable defense technology to India if all New Delhi wants is just a limited partnership. Instead, it will look to deepen ties with other partners like Australia and Japan, which want what it wants. It's already doing that through efforts like the AUKUS nuclear submarine alliance. So let's sum it up. In June last year, Prime Minister Narendra Modi expressed the hope that the friendship between India and the United States would enhance the strength of the whole world. President Biden said that the India-US relationship would be the defining partnership of the 21st century. But if America and India have fundamental disagreements about what they want to achieve, that is unlikely to happen. Thanks for watching Threadbare. I'm Shashank Mattu. Please do catch me again next week on India Today Global.